Episode 6, Deja Vu. For 3 years, Blaise sat in prison for the murder of Duran Bailey until December 2005. Blaise is released. The Nevada Supreme Court stepped in and said that Judge Valerie Vega's ruling, especially when it came to the jailhouse snitch, deprived Blaise of a fair trial. During the trial, the prosecution presented Kirstin Martin. Kirstin Martin testified that Blaise bragged about murdering Duran Bailey while they were both incarcerated together. Blaise's attorney at the time, Phil Cohn, said Kirstin Martin would do anything to get out of prison early and said he believed Kirstin Martin was testifying against Blaise for that reason alone. Phil says he also had evidence that Kirstin Martin was orchestrating another plan to get out of prison early. Judge Valerie Vega would not let Phil Cohn cross-examine Kirstin Martin, hence in part leading to that reversal of Blaise's charges. Blaise's retrial went back to Judge Valerie Vega because in the state of Nevada, if a judge messes up a case, they are sent back that case, presumably to make it right.
The record shall reflect that we're resuming trial in State v. Lobato under case number C17.
It does not make sense that a case will get reversed and then sent back to the original judge. You know, some of the nonsense that you see with Nevada's judges specifically is astonishing. I mean, how does this happen? How does a judge get overturned or significant decisions that the judge made, the appellate court says, no, you did this wrong, and how does it then go back to that that makes no sense whatsoever.
That's attorney Stephen Jackson and childhood friend of Blaise. The Nevada Supreme Court sent the case back to Judge Vega's court, reasoning that she had erred in the first trial by not allowing Blaise's lawyer to fully question Kirstin Martin, the jailhouse snitch. That error, the justices said, quote, was not harmless, but it was reversible. In December 2005, Blaise had the potential to be released. Judge Valerie Vega set Blaise's bail at $500,000, 10 times her $50,000 bail from the first trial. Blaise was released after her supporters came up with that money, and Blaise went to live with Michelle Revelle.
But she had some of the most amazing supporters. These people became friends to me. They became part of my family, part of my life.
I've spoken to numerous people about Blaise's second trial, and all of them say the same thing. Judge Vega was pissed that she was scolded by the Supreme Court so openly. And I can see how a judge who is told you got it wrong the first time might want to show them, look, no I didn't, and hunker down even more. If you ask people in the courtroom, they say that's exactly what happened.
You get it wrong in the first trial. You shouldn't go back to the same judge because now the judge has got an attitude problem, the prosecutor's got an attitude problem.
Here are some of the things let into the second trial by Judge Vega. Do you remember those false positive blood tests in Blaise's car? Luminol is known to give false positives, which need to be corrected by further testing. And do you remember the baseball bat? Multiple state and defense witnesses said a bat could not cause Duran Bailey's injuries. Judge Vega allowed the jury to hear about the bat. Judge Vega also allowed testimony and photos of Blaise's custom license plate. Blaise had a custom license plate that read fornicator with a 4 and a number 8. The defense tried to keep that out, arguing it was just to make Blaise look bad. But Judge Vega allowed it in. And reminder, there was no DNA found in Blaise's car, and her tire tracks did not match the tire tracks at the crime scene.
It's purely to make her look bad, and that's a judicial decision that buries Blaise. There was no ID. Like, no one said that car drove away from this scene and it had a weird license plate. Here's what it was. There's no reason that license plate should be admitted into evidence. What in the hell? That's just astonishing.
Blaise's defense also didn't want probation officer Laura Johnson to testify. Laura Johnson is the one who called Las Vegas Metro Police about Blaise. Blaise had confided in close friend Dixie Tinkin about her attack. Worried that a man had tried to rape Blaise, Dixie then called Laura Johnson, asking for guidance and telling Laura Johnson the story that Blaise had told her. The defense argued what Laura Johnson told police was hearsay since she did not hear from Blaise herself. Judge Vega denied that defense motion and allowed Laura Johnson to testify to what Dixie told her that Blaise said. Blaise's lawyers were prepared to have witnesses come forward saying Blaise had told them about her attack before Duran Bailey was murdered. Judge Vega wouldn't allow that testimony because it was hearsay. Blaise's lawyers filed a motion to dismiss the charges based on lack of evidence due to police not collecting evidence and preserving vital items. Judge Vega ruled that police had no idea that DNA would need to be used in this case, and at the time of the murder in 2001, there was no way to know that certain items would link the murderers to the crime scene, so Judge Vega denied that defense motion. Judge Vega also denies the retesting of multiple items at the crime scene, including semen, cigarette butts, chewing gum, and more. That chewing gum had Duran Bailey's DNA on it and someone else's. The defense argued technology had advanced. Judge Vega said she believed DNA would not exonerate Blaise because Blaise's case was a confession case. Blaise's lawyers also filed another motion to dismiss the charges after a Nevada Supreme Court ruling that came down just weeks before Blaise's retrial. The Nevada Supreme Court said that a crime must be proven beyond a defendant's statements or their admissions. The case where this came from was Edwards versus the state. There were no witnesses or DNA connecting Blaise to Duran Bailey or Blaise to the murder. Despite the Nevada Supreme Court ruling, that recent ruling, Judge Vega denied the motion. And so in September 2006, Blaise's retrial began. Ahead of Blaise's new trial, Blaise had new lawyers working pro bono, Sherry Greenberger and Sarah Zalkin, and special public defender David Scheck. It was the same prosecutors, William Kephart and Sandra DiGiacomo. The second trial was pretty similar to the first trial except for a few things. The prosecution did not call Corinda Martin, that jailhouse snitch, to the stand. Blaise also herself did not testify in this trial. Blaise's defense remained the same as well. They maintain Blaise was attacked and defended herself by stabbing a man in the groin area, and they say this man was not Duran Bailey, and they say her attack had nothing to do with his murder. And you may remember the medical examiner from Blaise's first trial, Dr. Larry Sims. Blaise's first trial attorney, Phil Cohn, said Dr. Sims initially told him Duran Bailey was murdered 10 to 12 hours before he was declared dead. By the first trial, Dr. Sims had opened that up to as much as 18 hours, which puts the time of death anywhere July 8th from 4 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. How could no one tell when Duran Bailey was murdered? Beyond when he was murdered, there were so many things that had DNA on them from the crime scene that could be tested. Duran Bailey's pants, which were pulled down to his ankles, chewing gum, semen found in his rectum and near his penis, cigarette butts, nothing was tested. Detective Thowson in the first trial testified he did not believe Blaise's story that she was attacked in a separate incident across town in Las Vegas. In the first trial, Detective Thowson said he made calls to urologists and doctors in Las Vegas and could not find anyone who had been treated for a cut or slashed penis. In this second trial, Detective Thowson testified that he had his secretary make those calls. I called Las Vegas Metro Police, who told me detectives do not have secretaries, nor have they ever. In all of the available reports for this case, there was also no documentation verifying if any calls by either Detective Thowson or his secretary were ever made. The defense also gathered new witnesses, including Dr. Michael Loeffner, an associate of Stanford Medical School and a nationally recognized inventor of more than 100 medical-related products. Dr. Loeffner testified he believed, based on Duran Bailey's stab wounds, that scissors, particularly barber scissors, were used, not a knife. During cross-examination of Dr. Loeffner, prosecutor Bill Kephart asked him how much he was paid to testify. Dr. Loeffner tells prosecutor Kephart he looked at the case pro bono, saying, quote, "The first thing I was told by the defense lawyers was, we don't have any money." Other than Corinda Martin and Blaise not testifying, the second trial was a lot like the first trial. 3 weeks after the start of her second trial, Blaise is convicted again. This time of a lesser charge, manslaughter, and she's once again convicted for sexual penetration of a dead body. Here is attorney Stephen Jackson.
The fact that she was convicted twice means nothing to me. the first conviction, when a conviction is vacated, then that means that the trial is null. So yeah, she was convicted twice, but one of them was overturned for a very good reason that may have changed the outcome of the case. I honestly believe that there is a murderer who's been walking the streets who killed Duran Bailey in a really horrific way. And I think that that's something that we as a society need to be very concerned about.
Judge Vega did not allow Blaise to be free until sentencing, and Blaise was taken into custody after the verdict was read. Her sentence was reduced to 13 to 40 years. During my interview with Dr. Sims, who provided the time of death for the prosecution, Dr. Sims told me he did not believe Blaise committed the crime and said this crime was likely done by a man. But Dr. Sims said maybe there was just evidence that he missed. Dr. Sims maintains there is a 95% chance Duran Bailey died after 10 a.m., but said there was a 5% chance it could have been as early as 4 a.m. That 5% probability is the only time Blaise did not have an alibi. I told him that 5% had an impact on Blaise getting convicted.
I don't disagree with you. It's baffling to me why it worked that way, because for anybody to be put in prison, I want to be very clear about this, for anybody to be put in prison based on an interval of hours during one day, based on rigor mortis, that's a real serious problem. One of the things that really bothered me is I didn't think that I did a good job at communicating about some issues. Other issues I thought I was clear, but they seemed to be ignored. But there were areas where I didn't communicate well based on the questions that I was being asked. I talked to probably half a dozen DAs in Clark County about this case. I approached it. I said, when I'm on the stand as an expert and you ask me a question, can I volunteer information? And they go, no, you don't want to do that. You want to answer the question as it's stated. Now, that was a majority opinion. There was a minority opinion that said, well, what are you talking about? And I said, I think there was a lot of times at the end of my answers, there was still a lack of clarity because I was hesitating from being an advocate. And that bothered me. But, I'm not supposed to be an advocate. I'm supposed to just be an objective witness. So it always bothered me that as much explanation as I wanted to give didn't get out.
Having been involved in thousands of autopsies and countless criminal cases, this case always stood out to Dr. Sims. Here's attorney Stephen Jackson.
Most of the time, the prosecutors win. I mean, it is a unique situation when the prosecutors do not win. They have all the resources, they have the rules on their side, they have judges on their side. It's a unique situation when they don't win. It's just sad that these things happen to her, and it's this snowball that happened to her. She was sexually assaulted and then sexually assaulted again, and then to deal with that she started using drugs, and then in using the drugs got swept up into this thing. But then the system swoops in and the system wrecks her. And it wrecks her because that's how it's designed to act in situations like this. You're effed, you are just convicted before you even walk in the door. And it's sad, and it's just a brutal example.
During Blaise's second trial, the state never produces any evidence that Blaise knew Duran Bailey or that she was at the scene of the murder. Blaise has always maintained her innocence in this case, but now once again, she's doing it from prison. Also, since her second trial is now over, Blaise is now not represented by the Clark County Public Defender's Office. Michelle Revelle has a few days to go pick up all of the boxes pertaining to Blaise's case. That's when she and journalist Hans Schur make a discovery in evidence that no one noticed before, and this discovery changed everything. That's next on Presumption of Guilt.